Good morning. I'm reliably informed that the best burger in the USA is to be located at Venice Station. At least that's more or less why I'm visiting it today. Now you may know that Trent, Jonas Marcinko and their friend Ty recently came to this location in order to, I don't know whether to have a burger, but to refuel their aircraft and also to fly through a very strong and impressive rift valley. So I thought I'd just go and see if I could locate it this morning using the Zlin Shock Ultra. This is the new Ultra that was upgraded in Microsoft's patch yesterday, and you'll see that the turbo switch has now been removed from the dashboard. Now I'm not sure whether this is because they don't think this aircraft should have a turbo, or whether it's because when the Rotax runs a turbo, it runs all the time and it runs automatically. So I don't know about that. The caution light is still present, and I've now submitted a bug report about it. So we'll see what comes of that as well. Anyway, if you go to Jonas's page, and I'll put the link to his video below, you'll actually see the live version of this landscape, which we're going to explore today, because they're not quite the same as they're portrayed here. We've actually just come off the forecourt of a service station, so this is quite interesting. Anyway, this is also the tarmac, which looks pretty pristine compared to what it looks like in real life. Anyway, without any more to do, we will get airborne and go and have a look at this Rift Valley. Is it a rift valley? I don't know. Perhaps it's a river valley. Anyway, it's off in this direction, and it provides some pretty dramatic scenery and some pretty incredible flying conditions. I guess Swiss 001 might like to try taking an airliner down it or something like that if he's inclined. Personally, I wish him luck, and I'm perfectly happy. In fact, I'm quite challenged just to be exploring it in the Zlin. I think anything faster than this, and it would be very easy to get into trouble. If you looked at Jonas's recent post, you'll see him and his friends got into significant trouble here, but due to mechanical difficulties. Jonas punctured the radiator in his aircraft, and Trent apparently has broken one of his rudder pedals. So it's all pretty dramatic for the boys, and if you're into bush flying and you haven't already seen it, I encourage you to go to Jonas's page and have a look. Anyway, we're just going to fly a little bit above the river valley for the moment, mainly because in places at this end it's really quite narrow. You can put a plane through some of it, but it's really not that simple. In the video that Jonas posted, it's also looking much more desert-like than how it's portrayed here, which is really quite fertile. A lot of green about the banks, which probably isn't there in real life, or not in the season that we're in at the moment, which is, I suppose you call it fall in the United States. We would call it autumn, September. But maybe when Bing made this scenery, perhaps it was earlier in the year. Anyway, whatever you think of it, it's pretty dramatic, especially early in the morning. I think this branch is probably going to get increasingly narrow, so we'll just go up over the top. It's a little island, as you can see, where the river has changed its course at some time in the past. And then we'll dip down into it again a little bit further on. The latest update to this aircraft not only removed the turbo switch, which used to be on the right near that rather annoying warning light or caution light, which remains on whether you turn the aircraft off or not, but it also reset the proper calibration of the speedometer, which is still in kilometers per hour. This being a European version of the aircraft, but it's now set to more accurately reflect the danger and different conditions of the engine. Okay, here we go, we're going down. Wish us luck. It's a little bit bumpy down here. That's another thing that the upgrade did. It actually is now using a slightly different model, and it's modeling extra vibration for small general aviation aircraft. I'm not going to go right down to the bottom because with this light I can't actually see that well. I fancy the plane is slightly more stable, a little less quirky than it was, but it was a joy to fly before in the previous configuration, and I'm still enjoying it today. we haven't set any destination for this trip, so I'm just going to cruise along in this direction and see what we can see. Add a little bit more revs, just so we don't sink too much. This is very enjoyable flying, but sitting in the front room, staring at a screen, clearly has nothing of the drama that if you're flying a real bush plane out in this area could possibly afford to you. Nevertheless, it's the best that I can do, and if you're watching this, it's probably the best that you can do as well. So I do encourage you to have a try at this and fly it at various different times of the day when the light is going to be somewhat different from this. I don't advise flying it at night. This aircraft's not licensed to fly at night. You just go up a little bit at the moment, go over this trouble. Because unless you're Swiss 001, you won't want to crash. For those of you who don't know Swiss 001, he's got a channel that's been running for a very long time, and he specializes in taking large aircraft and attempting to land them on small airports without very much success. Occasionally takes you flying with him in a real aircraft, and of course those are some of the duller videos that he produces, but are probably some of the more challenging scenarios that he faces in his flying career. I'm not sure that he's actually got his license yet to fly in real aircraft, but he's pretty good at landing. Sometimes he gets his aircraft down rather unexpectedly in X-Plane and Flight Sim, so hats off to him, and he's certainly got a much larger channel than this one. It must be really great to explore these places in a light bush aircraft. Of course, we've all got the carbon covers by Cub Crafters as one of the aircraft in even the basic edition of Microsoft Flight Sim, and that should be able to get down here. As well as Zlin's own Super Cub. So there's no reason why you shouldn't try this, even if you're on the basic edition of Flight Sim. When I was a boy, this was the sort of thing that in magazines people would be doing in Spitfires in order to throw off dastardly attackers from other countries. And of course the awful foe would crash into the ground or something similar. Well, I think that's pretty fanciful. It's true that in the UK the RAF fly sorties through some of the Welsh valleys, but they're nowhere near as narrow as this little gorge. So I don't know, I don't think you could get a jet aircraft through here that easily. And I'm very happy just to be flying this one. I'm going to cut that corner. And things appear to be opening out a little now. Of course, I could be completely wrong about that because I don't know what's around the next bend. What I do know though is that I'm beginning to fancy some breakfast. So I'm going to climb out of here. Hopefully up onto that ridge to the right. And land and have something to eat. There is something in flying called the land effect, which means that the plane's properties are affected by the land. So you can do things like stall tests. At 1,000 or 2,000 feet above the land, not above sea level, because here we're already 3,000 feet above sea level and we're not entirely above the land. But yes, you can do these tests and your aircraft, you'll learn a lot about it, but it's not necessarily going to behave as it does when you're up above the land. Okay, let's see what we can scope out down here as a suitable place to put the plane down. And then while I have some breakfast, and probably tomorrow as far as videos go, I'll see if I can figure out a destination that we can go to from this place, which will enable us to land somewhere different from the point where we started. One of the curious things about landing when there are no aircraft markers on an airport is that you're never entirely sure, certainly in a flight sim, how high you really are above the ground. So landing is not quite as straightforward as when we land at an airport where everything is kind of neatly marked out for us. I don't really want to land in that water. And I don't really want to land anywhere that's too uneven, and this looks fairly uneven, but I guess if we land in the correct sort of direction, we're going to be okay. I hope so, anyway. One of the great things about this aircraft is it lands extremely short. And if you land it uphill, it just stops very quickly with a little touch on the brakes. So we'll set the flaps back to neutral. Taxi a little towards the sun and the mountains over there. Have some breakfast and decide what to do next. Thank you very much for watching. If you like this video, please remember to like and share it with your friends, and thank you very much for watching. We'll see you again very soon.